Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Nerd Central. I'm your host Devin Vinzant, and today we have our next installments of Dragon Corner, Heart of the Cards, Look Back, and Dead on Arrival. Plus we have round 2 of the Best Marvel Character Tournament. But first, let's talk about the news of the week. Disney is trying to take over the world. As we reported in the spring, 21st Century Fox has agreed to sell 20th Century Fox to the Walt Disney Company. However, Comcast threw their hat in the ring with a higher bid than Disney's. Disney then countered once more with a $71.3 billion bid, which was inevitably approved by both companies this summer. Disney's decision to make this deal lies squarely on the fact that Disney will be releasing their own streaming service next year, and they want to boost their back catalog to add Fox's films and television. Now don't fear, Disney's own sports station, ESPN, will not be acquiring the 22 Fox stations from around the country. As part of the agreement, Disney must sell off those stations to not create a monopoly. Comcast did not walk away empty-handed though. Sky, one of Britain's major television companies, was purchased by Comcast for $39 billion, with Fox selling Comcast the remainder of their shares for $15 billion. With the acquisition of Fox, Disney will have access to almost all of the Marvel characters for use in their Marvel Cinematic Universe, with Kevin Feige being the man tapped by Disney to oversee the X-Men when they enter the universe. Only time will tell when this deal will be finished, as the governments of the world will have to approve it. With Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, and now Fox, Disney is slowly trying to ensure that any film you see has Cinderella's castle at the start of it. And Dragon Ball Super Broly has a Western release date. The Funimation dub of the film will be released in the United States and Canada January 16th, 2019, about a month after the film's December 14th debut in Japan. In light of that information, let's throw to our resident anime packs, Dragon Corner and Heart of the Cards.
Hello and welcome back to Dragon Corner. Last week we covered a lot of ground talking about Saiyan biology and history, so I wanted to wrap up our discussion with a series staple, the Super Saiyan. Around 1,000 years ago, or the year 238 before age for those of you keeping track at home, there was a righteous Saiyan named Yamoshi. Like most Saiyans, Yamoshi loved to fight, but he chose to fight with a purpose, to eradicate the evil in his people. During his struggle, Yamoshi acquired a terrifying transformation, the Super Saiyan. This increased his ferocity and potency as a fighter, and rumors quickly spread about the form's immense power and savage nature. When civil war threatened to tear Sadala apart, Yamoshi and 5 comrades performed a ceremony to further his transformation to god status. Despite his recent power-up, Yamoshi was unable to take on an entire race, and both he and Sadala were destroyed. Cut to 1,000 years later, specifically age 762, Goku is on a planet called Namek, fighting the draconian self-proclaimed Emperor of the Universe, Frieza. Even as Frieza is seemingly defeated, he refuses to believe that a member of such a primitive species could best him, and denies the existence of Super Saiyans. During Goku's premature celebration, his best friend is killed, and Frieza threatens Gohan next. Goku's eyes turn green, his hair stands on end and turns gold, and he utters a promise born of grief and rage. I will make you suffer. The base Super Saiyan form carries a 50 times power multiplier, although Toriyama considers this a bit of an exaggeration. There are a number of augmentations to this form, usually referred to as grades, like Ultra Super Saiyan or Super Saiyan 3rd grade, which carries a tremendous power-up, but makes the user virtually immobile. By training their bodies to stay in Super Saiyan form all the time, even while asleep, Goku and Gohan achieve the double-strength Super Saiyan 2, which is characterized by crackling blue lightning and stiffer hair spikes. Goku eventually reaches Super Saiyan 3, which features an iconic hair change and comedically absent eyebrows. Super Saiyan 3 is around 4 times more powerful than a Super Saiyan 2, but drains stamina quickly. Due to the physical limitations of the ability and the expense of animating all the long hair, this form rarely lasts more than a few seconds. When Universe 7's God of Destruction arrives to battle Goku, a group of Saiyan and Half Saiyan characters, including Videl, a human carrying Gohan's Quarter Saiyan child, lend Goku their power to transform into a Super Saiyan God. Though the power runs out quickly, Goku's body learns from the experience, allowing him to achieve deific levels of power. Eventually, both he and Vegeta can become Super Saiyan gods at will, and even discover a new hybrid transformation, a Super Saiyan god who has gone Super Saiyan. This name was later shortened to Super Saiyan Blue. This form gives them access to the full extent of both their mortal and god power, but takes a good chunk of stamina up front to achieve, making long fights or multiple transformations difficult. Vegeta can achieve a limit break form called Super Saiyan Blue Evolution, which is a significant power-up seeing as it puts him on par with Goku's Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20. These kinds of transformations are well beloved in the series, and you have to admit, it's pretty hard not to get excited when you hear that iconic power-up scream. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to catch you next time on Dragon Corner.
Hello and welcome to Nerd Central's Heart of the Cards with your host Bradley Justice. I will be taking a deep dive into the anime juggernaut that is Yu-Gi-Oh! Or what I like to call the Friendship Show.
Oh, I get it. The red one blocked for the green one.
Tristan's card was there right when I needed it most.
Of course! Those two monsters are like best friends, so when they're together on the field, they help power each other up.
Season 2 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters was long, but oh was it so much fun. You had so many powerful cards and so many memorable moments. Also named Battle City Tournament, it was the first true season that made me the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fanboy that I am today. This season is about the lust for power. Kaiba is given one of the 3 Egyptian god cards, Obelisk the Tormentor, and is told to host a tournament to lure the other Egyptian god cards into the city. The season starts out a week after Duelist Kingdom, when Yugi gets his Millennium Puzzle stolen by a hooded man. That's when we first get introduced to the season's main antagonist, Merrick Ishtar. Merrick is a kingpin in a cult organization called the Rare Hunters. These Rare Hunters are usually mind-controlled by Merrick into his own Millennium item, the Millennium Rod, into doing his bidding like finding rare cards and dueling Yugi and his friends. We learn early on in the season that the spirit that lives in the Millennium items, like Yugi's puzzle, Bakura's ring, and Merrick's rod, are called Yami. Even though they're all called Yami, they are not the same. Bakura's ring and Merrick's rod contain evil spirits, and Yugi's puzzle contains the spirit of the pharaoh. Merrick was born into a Tombkeeper's family, with his older sister Ishizu and adoptive older brother and best friend Odeon. As a Tombkeeper, Merrick's main goal is to protect the tomb of the nameless pharaoh. This all changed when Yami Merrick took control of Merrick's body and killed Merrick's dad. Yami Merrick's main goal is to obtain the 3 Egyptian god cards and Yugi's puzzle so he can rule the world and become the new pharaoh. What I love so much about this season is the main antagonist is powerful. Unlike Pegasus, he is a part of every duel Yugi plays, and even at one point befriends Yugi and his friends and tricks them into believing he is not Merrick at all. So he's much more involved and manipulative than Pegasus ever was. The duels this season were memorable. Kaiba and Yugi dueling together, Yugi dueling a mind-controlled mime named Strings and obtaining the god card Slifer the Sky Dragon, and Yami Merrick using his 3rd god card, the Winged Dragon of Ra, to win against Mai in the tournament quarterfinals. I will always love Season 2 of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters. Amazing villains, absolute crackin' duels, and the first ever appearance of the fan favorite, Dark Magician Girl. The only downfall of the season is the ending of the season. Before we get to see the semi-final duels, the season ends. You'll have to wait till next week before I can tell you who won the Battle City Tournament and why the cyberspace saga isn't over. This has been Bradley Justice with Heart of the Cards.
Welcome back to Nerd Central. You just watched the latest installments of Dragon Corner and Heart of the Cards. Now let's talk about some trailers that dropped last week. First up, Bumblebee. This film is a prequel to the other 5 movies in the Transformers franchise. It takes place in 1987 and follows Charlie Watson, played by Haley Steinfeld, as she repairs Bee and realizes that there is more to him than meets the eye. The new trailer also confirms the appearance of fan favorite and leader of the Autobots, Optimus Prime, and he looks a lot like what he looked like in the 80s film. Peter Cullen is confirmed to return for the voice of Prime. Along with Steinfeld, John Cena plays Agent Burns, an agent of Sector 7 and main human antagonist of the film. The film will be released on December 21st. Next up, Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. This film is a sequel to the prequel of the Harry Potter franchise. I know, confusing, right? The Crimes of Grindelwald take place about a year after the first film with a young Dumbledore, now played by Jude Law. who enlists the help of Newt Scamander, again played by Eddie Redmayne, to stop the evil mastermind, Gellert Grindelwald. This final trailer shows us the connection between the Fantastic Beasts films and the Harry Potter films, with Claudia Kim playing the character Nagini, who can transform into a snake. Years later, Voldemort would conceal one of his Horcruxes in her. Spoiler. The film will be released on November 16th. Up next, Creed 2. The film follows Adonis Creed, played by Michael B. Jordan, as the light heavyweight champion when Victor Drago, son of Ivan Drago, challenges Creed to a boxing match. Sylvester Stallone will return as the franchise's main character, Rocky Balboa. The film will release on November 21st. And finally, X-Men Dark Phoenix. This film takes place in the 90s with Jean Grey, played by Sophie Turner, trying to figure out her powers after revealing them at the end of Apocalypse. This film will be taking inspiration from the Dark Phoenix saga run in the comics. This is not the first time X-Men has tried the Dark Phoenix storyline, as 2006's X-Men The Last Stand, but that wasn't the best.
Dark Phoenix will be released June 7th, 2019.
Now let's take a look at the next installments of Look Back and Dead on Arrival. Take it away, guys.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Look Back, a retrospective on shows that I used to love to shows that I love in the present day. I'm Mikey, and let's go back to the mid-2000s. A simpler time where Nickelodeon had a lot of good shows, one of my all-time favorites being The Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. Now, this show did not start out as a show. It started out as a movie. The movie, called fittingly Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, was released into theaters in 2001, and it gained favorable reviews. Good enough reviews, in fact, that Nickelodeon picked them up for original series, therefore bringing the entire gang to Nickelodeon on the small screen. Now, with the movie, they only needed one plot. For a TV show, they needed much more. And so we see Jimmy, with his big head and giant brain, live a normal life as a suburban kid. Of course, it isn't just him. There are also his friends, Carl and Sheen, along with some enemies, most notably Cindy, but there are a smattering of other characters as well. As a kid, I probably watched the movie about 30 times, and while the show is very, very good, I watched the movie way more often. But I'm sure owning the VHS did not help with that one bit. Now, with all kids' TV shows, there is one thing that's super important that's not the show itself: the toys that are made for it. And I have to say, I owned quite a number of them. My favorite by far being an RC car shaped like the Ultra Orb, which I used until it literally fell apart on me. On the flip side, the video games made were not the best. In fact, the one based on the movie is considered one of the worst games of its type ever created. But let's get back to the good things, such as the animation for the TV show. For a Nickelodeon show in the early 2000s, the animation is shockingly good. Now, computer animation had been around for a while at this point, but it was mainly for movies, not TV shows. And for Nickelodeon to have a show this good in this animation style is quite amazing. But it couldn't last, as DNA Productions shut down in 2004, bringing the show with it. Now, there would be a spin-off in 2010 called Planet Sheen, but it lasted one season and got terrible reviews, so it didn't last long. So sadly right now, it doesn't seem like the show's coming back anytime soon. But at least, as of October 2018, it's still on Hulu, so it's still watchable. During the show's life on Nickelodeon, the show had one major crossover. But I don't want to get into that today. Not without the information from the other show. Next week, we go into a miserable kid and his fish with floating crowns. Stay tuned to Nerd Central.
Let's rock, baby. Oh yeah, this party's getting crazy, because we're talking about Devil May Cry, the anime. Now, I've only seen 3 animes in my life, 2 of which will actually be covered in this series. So I'm not necessarily an expert, I'm just a nerd that knows what he likes. And damn, I love Devil May Cry. First, some background. Devil May Cry is originally a video game series, starring a half-demon, half-human demon hunter named Dante. The coolest... Wait a second, what the hell is Dino doing here? You are not Dante! You fake math addict emo reboot mother... DMC continuity is really screwed up. The games go in chronological order of 3, 1, 4, 2. The anime takes place between the events of DMC3 and DMC1. There's not really an overarching story for the series, going for a more Demon of the Week structure, if you will. It works very well for Dante's no-care attitude and style. The dude really just wants enough money to pay the bills, and to get some pizza. Most of the time, if Dante takes real interest in a job, it's mostly because of this childlike wonder that he has. Dante is really the least mature badass you can imagine. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he doesn't cuss, he even refused to save a bar from demon infestation unless they put strawberry sundaes on the menu. If you're a fan of the game, you'll be pleased to know that every voice actor reprises their roles from DMC3. For side characters, we have Lady, a fellow demon hunter who Dante owes a lot of money to. They don't exactly explain why he owes her so much money. It's just kind of implied for the whole series. Then there is Trish, Dante's sometimes partner, sometimes lover, and sometimes mother figure. Their relationship is odd to say the least. She's mostly just in the anime to provide moral support and to mess with Dante's head occasionally. Devil May Cry is a nice 12-episode anime that is consistently excellent. I couldn't really find a reason through my research on why it was cancelled, but the main point is I am upset about it.
I could really talk about DMC for hours, but we do have some time constraints here at Nerd Central. So, from Dead on Arrival on Nerd Central, this is Cody Nance saying, flock off, Featherface.
Thanks, guys. Some more news for you all. Daredevil Season 3 is coming, and it's closer than you think. Netflix dropped a couple of trailers promising the season, with one of them teasing the return of the Kingpin. This season takes place after the crossover team-up miniseries The Defenders, as Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, protects Hell's Kitchen from the crime in the streets. The series will drop on Netflix on October 19th. In other Marvel Netflix news, Rosario Dawson might be out of the universe. Dawson has been the glue for this universe, as she has appeared in almost every Marvel show on Netflix. She has stated that she just doesn't want to be so far away from her family, as she has to film the shows in New York and she lives in California. If Dawson is done with the character of Claire Temple, we here at Nerd Central would like to thank her for bringing that character to the screen and bringing her best to it. That's going to do it for this week's Nerd Central. Nerd Showdown is next. You can get caught up on all of the previous episodes on the KNWT YouTube page. Also follow KNWT on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can follow Nerd Central on Twitter at nerd_central_TV. Round 2 of the Best Marvel Character Tournament will commence after the break. Stay with us. Hello and welcome to Nerd Showdown, the part of Nerd Central where we battle it out on a particular topic we have no business debating. I'm your host, Devin Vinzant, and with the release of Venom this week, we again ask the question, who is the best character in all of Marvel Comics? The winner of this showdown will face Keegan Cooper and the character of Iron Man to be crowned champion. Vying for a spot in that match, returning for some redemption from last week, I have Weekend Sports Kickoff producer Caleb Winslow. And one of the hosts of Nerdmageddon, Corey Herzog.
What's up, everybody?
Caleb, why don't you start us off? Why is Spider-Man the best Marvel character?
Well, Spider-Man is the best Marvel character because he's somebody you can relate to. He wasn't meant to be this big, flashy superhero like Iron Man, Captain America. He was meant to be an average, everyday kid. I mean, you see that in the Sam Raimi trilogy. You see that in the Tom Holland film so far. He's just an average kid. He's just trying to show that he's worth something in the real world, and that's something I can understand. It's like, hey, I could be Spider-Man if I got bit by a spider. And he can be anybody you can imagine. It's like he's not somebody who's like, oh, hey, I know exactly who that is. It's like he's somebody anybody could be.
Corey, in defense of Squirrel Girl.
All right. Well, first of all, Squirrel Girl's stats are completely maxed out. So therefore, she's the strongest in all of the Marvel comics. And again, she's relatable like Spider-Man, but more so. I mean, she's a babysitter. That's part of her job. She's a college student studying computer engineering, and she does end up having like a daughter-father relationship with Iron Man as well, and that's actually a little more pronounced in the comics than, you know, maybe like Tom Holland's in the movies. And yeah, I mean, if you even just look on campus with how many squirrels there are and her ability to communicate and work with squirrels, she could easily take over the world, but she doesn't because she's a good person.
Finding out this week I was going up against this Squirrel Girl, I had no clue who Squirrel Girl was because she's not exactly very mainstream compared to Spider-Man. He's had three separate basically nearly trilogies over the past 20 years of my life. He's existed in comic format since the 60s. He was created by one of the greatest comic book writers of all time, Stan Lee, and with Steve Ditko. And I don't know who Squirrel Girl is. I mean, can you name who Squirrel Girl is, Devin, without having prior knowledge? Did you know much about Squirrel Girl?
I want to clarify that I'm the moderator in this debate and technically don't have a side. I will answer your question, however. I know who Squirrel Girl is. Don't test me on this. I know obscure comic characters, but I'll give you that. She's obscure.
He exploits his superpowers for gain. I mean, if you look at his work at the Daily Bugle, you know, he's taking pictures of Spider-Man and selling them, you know, so he's also kind of doing it for the notoriety rather than just like, I want to be a good person and I want to help the people of New York. But he's like, you know what, I'm also going to make some money off of it. So where's his journalism ethic right there?
Any kid could picture himself, hey, that could be me. He's like, I don't have to be super strong. I don't have to be rich. He doesn't have to be like Iron Man or any other like big name character in the Marvel Universe who has a lot of money, like Black Panther. He doesn't have to have tons of money to be able to be a real superhero. Spider-Man could have easily have come up with some of these things on his own. He's like, has a genius level IQ. He's just a high school student. He wasn't meant to be some big guy. He's meant to be somebody the little guys can always look up to.
Again, she's probably the most powerful person in the Marvel Comics. She's able to take Wolverine on hand to hand, well, I guess claw to claw, because she also has like spikes that come out of her knuckles as well. She has a tail, which that's awesome. Again, she has the father-daughter relationship with Iron Man. She's not super rich, and she was part of the Great Lake Avengers as well, so she's a little more homegrown. She has experience. She's worked with Captain Marvel, not Miss America, but just a bunch of other super heroines. And so she really does show that, like, you don't have to have like a big superpower. You can be a little quirky and weird because she's a little bit silly, but she still gets the job done.
That's going to do it for this week's Showdown, and the winner is Corey.
Yes!
You can head to Nerd Central's Twitter to show your support for this week's Showdown. Nerdmageddon is coming up next. You can catch Weekend Sports Kickoff at 9 p.m. right here on KNWT Channel 8. See you next week on Nerd Central.
The only reason he has to do that is because...
Well, you don't get to talk now.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so Nerdmageddon is coming up next. You can catch Story Behind the Story at 6:30 p.m. right here. Oh, someone didn't change it. We're talking about how old we were, and then like, Andy was like, when you guys were born, I was in high school, and we were like, no, because he was like 5, and I was like, when I was born, what did I say? I was born the same year as Court's first kid.